Good afternoon, ENG for you. Let's get right into Act 2, Scene 1 of Hamlet. In this scene, Polonius dispatches his servant Rinaldo to Paris to deliver some money to Laertes and also to gather information about his behavior. Ophelia enters, upset and frightened, and tells Polonius about a disturbing visit she has just had from Hamlet. Hamlet's clothing was in disarray. He did not speak to Ophelia, but he seemed to be painfully taking his leave of her. Polonius quickly concludes that rejected love has caused Hamlet to go mad. He decides to inform the king immediately. So here we're going to see a continuation of that spying motif, and we'll see how Ophelia continues to develop as a puppet figure. Again, one thing to note is that Hamlet has decided he will trust no one. In fact, he is going to desperately want to trust people, but in the end, they're going to prove to be unworthy of that trust. All right, so let's get right into Act 2, Scene 1.
Give him this money and these notes, Rinaldo.
I will, my lord.
You shall do marvellous wisely, good Rinaldo, before you visit him to make inquire of his behaviour.
My lord, I did intend it.
Very well said, very well said. Look you, sir. Inquire me first what danskers are in Paris, and how and who, what means and where they keep, what company at what expense. And finding by this encompassment and drift of question that they do know my son, come you more nearer than your particular demands will touch it. Take you as 'twere some distant knowledge of him, as thus I know his father and his friends, and in part him. Do you mark this, Rinaldo?
Aye, very well, my lord.
Okay, so Polonius is instructing a servant of his, Rinaldo, to go down to Paris, give my son some money here, but there's a second purpose for you going down there. I want you to make sure that he is acting properly, honorably. And so he says, what I'm going to have you do is spy on my son. Firstly, identify what danskers are in Paris. What Danes, people who are Danish. Identify who those people are, seek them out, and then just really casually see if you can get some information out of them. And so Polonius says, start with like, oh, I know Laertes' father. I kind of know him too. How's he doing down here? Like, what's his behavior like? So just very casually start a conversation to see if you can find out whether he's acting honorably in Paris or not.
In part him, but you may say not well. But if be he, I mean, he's very wild, addicted so-and-so, and there put on him what forgeries you please. Marry, none so rank as may dishonour him, take heed of that. But, sir, such wanton, wild, and usual slips as our companions noted and most known to youth and liberty.
Okay, so while you're at it, you can accuse him of any imagined faults you may wish. Just make sure that whatever you say about him, you do not dishonor him. Now, this is very interesting because Polonius was so very concerned about anybody dishonoring his daughter. But here it seems to be he is the one who is suggesting that Rinaldo dishonor his son. The difference is that Polonius wants to find out some information. And so in this way we see that he is Machiavellian, which means the end justifies the means. So he needs to know how his son is behaving, and so it doesn't matter how he finds out. He's going to justify the whole thing, saying, well, I needed to do this because I needed to find out about my son. And so we call that kind of behavior Machiavellian, because you can justify anything, right? So Polonius is going to say, yeah, so any kind of imagined fault you can accuse him of and see what their response is. Whether they say, oh, yes, Laertes, oh, he's a drunkard, or, he's a partier, or he's a big gambler, or he likes to spend time with women of ill repute in brothels. So he's going to say, make it less serious, though, by the casual way you say it. Kind of like, oh, boys will be boys. kind of, downplay it, is what Polonius is going to suggest.
As gaming, my lord?
Aye, or drinking, fencing, swearing, quarrelling, drabbing, you may go so far.
My lord, that would dishonor him.
Braith knows you may season it in the charge. You mustn't put another scandal on him, but he is open to incontinence, That's not my meaning. But Braith is false so quaintly that they may seem the taints of liberty, the flesh and outbreak of a fiery mind, a savageness in unreclaimed blood of general assault.
Okay, so don't dishonor him. No. So Ronaldo's kind of confused here. It sounds like you're asking me to dishonor him, but do it in a casual way so it's less dishonoring of him. That's what Polonius is suggesting. And he's saying, inquire about his sexual behavior. Is he practicing habitual debauchery? But again, don't put too much fault on him. Suggest that, it's the fault of having too much freedom, or that he's just young and sowing his oats. Typical behavior of young people.
But, my good lord...
Wherefore should you do this?
Aye, my lord, I would know that.
Marry, sir, here's my drift. And I believe it is a fetch of warrant. You laying these slight sullies on my son, as for a thing a little soiled in the working, mark you, your party in converse, him you would sound, having ever seen in the predominant crimes the youth you breathe of guilty, be assured he closes with you in this consequence, good sir, or so, or friend, or gentleman, according to the phrase in the edition of Man and Country.
Very good, my lord.
Okay, so then Polonius says, okay, listen, whoever it is that you're talking to, just make sure that you end off it on good terms with them. Make sure that they call you a friend or a gentleman. It is a trick. You're going to trick these people. But he says it's a legitimate trick. It is worthwhile. And he says wise people play these little games. He's going to express that a little bit later. Again, this shows that he is Machiavellian, willing to do whatever it takes to get what he wants, right?
And then, sir, does he this? He does. What was I about to say? By the matter, I was about to say something. Where did I leave?
Closes in the consequence, that friend or so.
Closes in the consequence, aye, very. He closes with you, as. I know the gentleman. I saw him yesterday or t'other day, or then with such and such. And, as you say, there was he gaming, there or took in his rouse, there falling out of tennis, or perchance I saw him enter such a house of sale, vidilicet and brothel, or so forth. See you now. Your bait of falsehood takes this carp of truth.
All right, your bait of falsehood takes this carp of truth. By using lies as bait, you will fish out the truth about my son. And again, he says this is a wise thing to do. Like this is the kind of game that everybody plays to find out the truth. Yeah, so he believes, he's going to say a little bit later, just next actually. And thus do we of wisdom and of reach, with windlasses and with essays of bias. So he believes that wise people play these little games. It's okay.
And thus do we of wisdom and of reach, with windlasses and with essays of bias, by indirections find directions out.
By indirections, find directions out. In other words, by indirect methods going around, we are going to find out the truth.
So, by my former lecture of advice shall do, my son. You have me, have you not?
You understand?
We run by you fairly well.
Good, my lord.
Observe his inclination in yourself.
I shall, my lord.
And let him ply his music.
Well, my lord.
Let him ply his music. Make sure you let him do as he pleases. Don't give him advice. You're not there to give him advice. Only observe. Do not correct.
Well?
My lord! My lord!
Oh, no. Frida, what's the matter?
Alas, my lord, I have been so frightened.
With what, in the name of heaven?
My lord, as I was sewing in my chamber, Lord Hamlet, with his doublet all unbraced, no hat upon his head, his stockings fouled, ungartered, and down-jivered to his ankle, pale as his shirt, his knees knocking each other, and with a look so piteous in purport, as if he had been loosed out of hell, to speak of horrors, he comes before me.
Men for thy love.
All right, so let's take a look at the annotation here. So this behavior here, his doublet, his jacket was all undone, and his hair and his hat, he wasn't wearing a hat, and his stockings were all messed up and down to his ankles. His shirt was kind of all, untucked. His knees were knocking together. The Elizabethans would have assumed that this look represented that Hamlet was madly in love with somebody. So let's take a look. In Elizabethan times, a man who wanted to show that he was in love would dress negligently to, suggest that, oh, I'm so in love with you, I can barely function, right? And so when Hamlet would show up on stage looking like this, the Elizabethans would recognize immediately that it's probable or likely that Hamlet is in love. So Polonius says, oh, mad for thy love. Yeah, and that would be the reaction of the Elizabethans at the time as well.
Lord, I do not know, but truly I do fear it.
What said he?
He took me by the wrist and held me hard. Then goes he to the length of all his arm. And with his other hand thus o'er his brow he falls to such perusal of my face as he would draw it. Long stayed he so. At last a little shaking of mine arm, and thrice his head thus waving up and down, he raised a sigh so piteous and profound as it did seem to shatter all his bulk and end his being. That done, he lets me go, and with his head over his shoulder turned, he seemed to find his way without his eyes, for out of doors he went without their help, and to the last bended their light on me.
All right, so Ophelia gives the lowdown here. Gives her father the deets here. So she says, this is what happened. He grabbed my wrist and he held it hard and he kind of let go and he almost looked like he was gonna faint and sigh. He didn't say one word to me. All he did was stare at me the whole time and sigh. A little shaking of my arm. He did seem to kind of lose control over himself. He lets me go finally, and with his head over his shoulder, he's walking out of the door. He finally leaves me, but he's not watching where he's going at all. So he says his eyes were just transfixed on me the whole time. He did make it out the door somehow, but she says, I don't know how he knew where he was going because his eyes weren't showing him which way to go. So he lets me go, and with his head over his shoulder turned, he seemed to find his way without his eyes. And for outdoors, he went without their help, and to the last bended their light on me. So even when he turned the corner outside the door, his eyes were still on her. It freaked her right out.
Come, go with me. I will go seek the king. This is the very ecstasy of love, whose violent property foredoes itself and leads the will to desperate undertakings as oft as any passion under heaven that does afflict our natures. I'm sorry. What, have you given him any hard words of late?
No, my good lord, but as you did command, I did repel his letters and denied his access to me.
All right, so Polonius says, and this is uncharacteristic of him, he actually apologizes here a bit. He says, oh, dear God, he is madly in love with you. It's really true. And he says, I'm sorry, Ophelia, because I didn't believe that it was true, that he really loved you. And a little bit later on, he's going to say, we old people, we come by it honestly that we're suspicious. And we come by it as honestly as young people come by, wanting to live wildly.
It has made him mad. I'm sorry that with better heed and judgment I had not quoted him. I feared he did but trifle and meant to wreck thee, but beshrew my jealousy. It seems it is as proper to our age to cast beyond ourselves in our opinions as it is common for the younger sort to lack discretion. Come, go we to the king. This must be known, which being kept close might move more grief to hide than hate to utter love. Come.
Okay, so he says, we must report this to the king. To keep this secret might cause him more harm than not saying anything. Sure, the king might get angry, but we can't take the chance of something more serious happening. So we can't keep this a secret. And it's important to note here that Polonius actually does seem genuinely sorry. We won't really see that again. So it's just a couple pages before, we see that Polonius is believes that the end justifies the means, which means that he is not really a trustworthy man, is he? He's going to present himself later on as being a trustworthy man, but because he is Machiavellian, we know him not to be. We can't trust him because he'll do whatever he has to do to find out what he wants to find out. So he enjoys playing games and tricking people, including his own son, right? So he's pretending to be one thing, but really is another thing. And again, we call that appearance versus reality. Okay, let's keep going here. Act 2, Scene 2. Now, the second scene is quite long. I'm not sure that we'll get it finished. Okay. Oops. Sorry. Act 2, Scene 2. In this scene, 2 months have passed. 2 old friends of Hamlet's, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, arrive at the court and agree to spy on Hamlet for Claudius and Gertrude. So again, more spying motif, right? Polonius enters and announces the return of 2 ambassadors sent to Norway and reports that the military threat from Norway has been resolved, thankfully. He also tells Claudius and Gertrude that Hamlet's rejected love for Ophelia is the cause of Hamlet's apparent madness. And he offers to arrange an accidental meeting between Hamlet and Ophelia so that he and Claudius can spy on their conversation. Hamlet enters immediately, reading a book. Polonius makes conversation with him, and Hamlet replies quite irrationally. But Polonius recognizes that there is some truth buried in Hamlet's mad words. Hamlet then greets Rosencrantz and Guildenstern warmly, but he soon realizes that they are spying on him too. So again, he so badly wants to trust somebody, but he knows he can't. When he tells them how depressed he is, they try to cheer him up with the news about some traveling actors visiting the court. Hamlet greets the players warmly and asks the lead actor to insert an extra few lines into the play called The Murder of Gonzago, to be performed before the king the next night. In a soliloquy, Hamlet chastises himself strongly for procrastinating in regard to his father's murder. No longer certain that the ghost was sincere, he decides to test his guilt by watching his reaction to a play in which old King Hamlet's murder will be reenacted. All right. So before we get into it, though, there is some information I want to give to you about a story that they're going to talk about. It is the story about the fall of Troy. So let's take a look right here. So the king of Troy, an ancient city, was sacked by the Greeks, was overtaken by the Greeks. And the king, his name was Priam, right here, Priam. And he was slaughtered by Pyrrhus, Pyrrhus, who was the son of Achilles. Priam's wife was Queen Hecuba, and we'll see from this story that she mourns and mourns and mourns very genuinely over her dead husband. And again, this parallels the main plot of Hamlet, where there is a murder of a king and a grief-stricken queen. I need to also mention the device that the Greeks used to gain access to this ancient city. They built a large Trojan horse out of wood, and they presented it to the gates of this ancient city as a gift. And so when the Trojans opened their gates and accepted the gift of this big horse, at nighttime, what ended up happening was the Greeks they were hidden inside of this Trojan horse. They came out of it and they sacked the city. They killed the king, and they just, took the whole city over. So there is going to be a speech near the end of Act 2, Scene 2, where some of this information is going to be referenced. So if you didn't know what was going on, you'd be, quite lost. All right, so Scene 2 here. Some old friends of Hamlet have agreed to spy on him. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are old friends of his from his childhood. So let's keep going. So enter King, Queen, Rosencrantz, Guildenstern, and some attendants. We're in a room in the castle.
Welcome, dear Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Moreover that we much did long to see you, the need we have to use you did provoke our hasty sending. Something have you heard of Hamlet's transformation, so I call it, sith nor the exterior, nor the inward man resembles that it was. What should it be more than his father's death that thus hath put him so much from the understanding of himself? I cannot deem of.
All right, so we can't figure it out. Is he? You've probably heard rumors that he is very depressed. He's very much changed man. So he says he has changed significantly on the outside and the inside. We're not sure whether it's just as a result of his father's death or if there is more to it. We'd like you to find out. Figure it out. If there's more to it, then maybe we can do something to cure it, to find a remedy.
I entreat you both, that being of so young days brought up with him, and sith so neighboured to his youth and humour, that you vouchsafe your rest here in our court some little time.
Yeah, you consent to stay here long enough to figure out what is really going on with Hamlet.
So by your companies to draw him on to pleasures, and to gather so much as from occasions you may glean, whether aught to us unknown afflicts him thus, that opened lies within our remedy.
Yeah, is it something that we can cure, that lies within our remedy?
But gentlemen, he hath much talked of you, and sure I am to men that are not living to whom he more adheres.
All right, this is an important line. I am sure that there are not two men living to whom he more adheres, to whom he is more loyal to. So, establishing how loyal Hamlet is to them, but will they be as loyal to Hamlet, is the question.
If it will please you to show us so much gentry and goodwill as to expend your time with us a while for the supply and profit of our hope, your visitation shall receive such thanks as fits a king's remembrance.
All right, so poor Guildenstern and Rosencrantz, they have no choice here, right? They've been summoned. It's not like they can say, nah, we're not interested. They have to basically do this, right? So Rosencrantz says, both your majesties might, by the sovereign power you have on us, we happily do this, but, we are your subjects. You can command us to do this. And she explains, well, the truth is that if you are able to help us figure this out, you will receive such thanks as fits a king's remembrance. She's going to pay them money. She's going to pay them to spy on her son. Now, they're going to ask, Rosencrantz asks, well, why us? Like, why not hire a professional?
Both your majesties might by the sovereign power you have of us put your dread pleasures more into command than to entreaty.
We both obey, and here give up our souls in the full bent to lay our services freely at your feet, to be commanded.
Yeah, so again, we are here at your command, but we're also here willingly. Well, of course they have to say that, right? Do they really want to spy on their friend?
Thanks, Rosencrantz and gentle Guildenstern.
Thanks, Guildenstern and gentle Rosencrantz. And I beseech you instantly to visit my too much changed son. Go, some of you, and bring these gentlemen where Hamlet is.
Heavens make our presence and our practices pleasant and helpful to him.
All right, so Guildenstern says, I hope, that we are successful. He says like a little prayer for success. But he says to make our presence and our practices connoting trickery, right? So they're aware that basically what they're doing is kind of tricking their friend into telling them what's really going on. And then they're going to report back to his parents. It is a betrayal of friendship.
Aye, amen.
The ambassadors from Norway, my good lord, are joyfully returned.
Thou still hast been the father of good news.
Have I, my lord? I assure you, my good liege, I hold my duty as I hold my soul.
This is interesting. The king says, "Oh, Polonius, you always give us, such good news, such like Yeah, good news. And he says, oh, do I? And he said, well, it's because I hold my duty as dear as my soul. Except for his soul is actually full of lies and trickery. So, interesting.
Both to my God and to my gracious king. And I do think, or else this brain of mine hunts not the trail of policy so sure as it hath used to do, that I have found the very cause of Hamlet's lunacy.
Oh, speak of that. That do I long to hear.
Give first admittance to the ambassadors. My news shall be the fruit to that great feast.
Thyself do grace to them, and bring them in. He tells me, my sweet queen, that he hath found the head and source of all your son's distemper.
I doubt it is no other but the main. His father's death and our hasty marriage.
Okay, so she is in tune with her son. She says here, I don't think that there is another cause. I truly believe that there are only two reasons for his Great Depression. The fact that his father died, and she acknowledges that her quick marriage has something to do with it too. She's not stupid.
Well, we shall sift him.
We'll question.
Welcome, my good friends. Say, Voltimand, what from our brother Norway?
Most fair return of greetings and desires. Upon our first, he sent us to suppress his nephew's levies, which to him appeared to be a preparation against the Polack. But better looked into, he truly found it was against your highness.
All right, so remember, we have old Fortinbras, that is the uncle of young Fortinbras. Because when old Hamlet got into the fight, the duel with the last king, he killed him. So the last king, King Fortinbras, had a brother who was much older than him and who was like kind of on his deathbed. So he ascended the throne and really is in command of Norway. So the strategy that Claudius had was, we're going to send 2 men to Norway to tell the current king, this guy who's kind of on his deathbed, what young Fortinbras is really planning. So they did. They went. The 2 people went and talked to old Fortinbras, and old Fortinbras said, no. My nephew is planning to invade Poland, not Denmark. But when he looked into it further, he realized it was true, that the young Fortinbras really was planning on invading Denmark to try and get revenge for his father's death. So the result was that the older King Fortinbras chastised the nephew and made him promise that he will not invade Denmark. In addition to that, he has given him some money and said, look, if you don't invade Denmark, I'll pay you some more money. I'll give you some more money so that you can continue your efforts to invade Poland. And this is an important thing to note, because the suggestion here is that Claudius signs a document that allows young Fortinbras safe passage through Denmark on the way to Poland, to invade Poland. And so we're going to see a little bit later on that Claudius agrees to do that. He thinks that's wondrous news. That's fantastic. He agrees he's not going to, invade our country, but we'll let him pass through our country so he can go in and invade Poland.
Whereat, grieved that so his sickness, age, and impotence was falsely borne in hand, sends out arrests on Fortinbras, which he, in brief, obeys, receives rebuke from Norway, and in fine makes vow before his uncle never more to give the assay of arms against your majesty. Whereon old Norway, overcome with joy, gives him 3,000 crowns in annual fee, and his commission to employ those soldiers so levied as before against the Polack, with an entreaty herein further shown.
All right, so he sends out commands. The old king, Fortinbras, sends out commands for young Fortinbras to stop his operations. And he makes him promise never to test out his military strength again against Denmark. Now, what they present Claudius with is a paper. So we see here it says, gives a paper. This paper is a document that Norway wants Claudius to sign to give them safe passage through their country.
that it might please you to give quiet pass through your dominions for his enterprise, on such regards of safety and allowance as therein are set down.
It likes us well, and at our more considered time we'll read, answer, and think upon this business.
He says, oh, that's a good idea. I'm really happy that they're not going to invade us. So for sure, we'll give them safe passage. I'll sign that document, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on.
Meantime, we thank you for your well-took labour. Go to your rest. At night we'll feast together. Most welcome home.
Again, the king really likes to party. We're going to celebrate and have a big party. And of course, one thing he really loves is when he toasts people and drinks and the cannons go off, and he's arrogant, right? All right. So Polonius is on to the next business, which is your son is mad, crazy, madly in love with my daughter, Ophelia.
Business is very well ended. My liege, and madam, to expostulate what majesty should be, what duty is, why day is day, night night, and time is time, were nothing but to waste night, day, and time. Therefore, since brevity is the soul of wit, and tediousness the limbs and outward flourishes, I will be brief.
So he says, I will be brief. But already, he is not brief. And in fact, the queen is going to lose patience with him and say, can you get on with this already? Like, come on, get to the point.
Your noble son is mad. Mad, I call it, for to define true madness, what is't but to be nothing else but mad. But let that go.
More matter with less art.
Get to the point.
I use no art at all. That he is mad is true. 'Tis true, 'tis pity, and pity it is true. A foolish figure, but farewell it, for I will use no art. Mad, let us grant him then, and now remains that we find out the cause of this effect, or rather say, the cause of this defect. For this effect defective comes by cause. Thus it remains, and the remainder thus.
Oh, get to it already, you know?
Perpend. I have a daughter, and she is mine, who in her duty and obedience Mark hath given me this. Now gather and surmise.
Okay, so again, we see Ophelia here as very much a puppet figure. I have a daughter that I own, and it is true. That's the way it was. So she has obeyed me. She has forfeited this letter to me, and I'm going to read it to you now.
To the celestial and my soul's idol, the most beautified Ophelia. That's an ill phrase, a vile phrase. Beautified is a vile phrase, but you shall hear. These in her excellent white bosom.
Came this from Hamlet to her?
Good madam, stay a while, I will be faithful. Doubt thou the stars are fire, doubt that the sun doth move, doubt truth to be a liar, but never doubt I love. O dear Ophelia, I am ill at these numbers, I have not art to reckon my groans, but that I love thee best, O most best, believe it adieu. Thine evermore, most dear lady, was this machine is to him, Hamlet.
All right. It sounds like this guy is really in love with her. This sounds very, very genuine. So do we believe that Hamlet is in love with Ophelia? It looks very much like he is. Is Ophelia in love with him? 100%. These two are in love with each other. But fate has intervened, and it's not falling into place very well. We know it might not. It probably will not, because this is tragedy, right? This is not a romance. This is tragedy.
This in obedience hath my daughter showed me, and more above hath his solicitings, as they fell out by time, by means and place, all given to mine ear.
But how has she received his love?
Oh, what do you think of me?
As of a man faithful and honourable.
I would fain prove so. But what might you think?
That's hilarious. He says, well, what do you think of me? You know, and the king says, well, you're faithful, you're honorable, loyal. And he says, well, of course I am. But we know, of course, that he is not. In his heart, he is Machiavellian. He'll do whatever he deems in his best interest. But he's going to go on to try and get himself out of trouble here. Because when he first heard of this, he really should have gone to the king. And he didn't.
When I had seen this hot love on the wing as I perceived it, I must tell you that before my daughter told me, what might you, or my dear majesty, your queen here, think if I had played the disc or table book, or given my heart a winking, mute and dumb, or looked upon this love with idle sight? What might you think?
So he says, Well, I'm going to tell you what I did. I didn't ignore it. What would you think of me if I was the go-between to encourage their love? What would you think of me? I would never do that. And he said, I would also never pretend to ignore this, which is interesting because that's exactly what he's done. He said to Ophelia, don't give him any of your time, and that's it. He really should have gone to the king. But he's trying to save his butt here, is what he's trying to do. And he says, no, I went right to work here, and I told her, you do not respond to his advances. He is out of your league.
No, I went round to work, and my young mistress thus I did bespeak. Lord Hamlet is a prince out of thy star. This must not be. And then I precepts gave her, that she should lock herself from his resort, admit no messengers, receive no tokens. Which done, she took the fruits of my advice, and he, repulsed, a short tale to make, fell into a sadness, then into a fast, thence to a watch, thence into a weakness, thence to a lightness, and by this declension into the madness wherein now he raves, and all we wail for.
All right, so this is his theory. He says, I told her to not respond to his advances. And because she did not respond to him, he has fallen into love sickness. He first fell into sadness, then into a fast, he didn't eat, then he couldn't sleep, thence to a watch, insomnia, thence to weakness, thence to like lightheadedness, and then eventually he deteriorated into complete madness over love. Unrequited love, unreturned love.
You think 'tis this?
It may be, very like.
Hath there been such a time, I'd fain know that I have positively said, 'tis so when it proved otherwise?
Not that I know.
Take this from this, if this be otherwise.
What an ass. He is a know-it-all, for sure. He says, the queen says, well, it's possible. This is possible. And Polonius says, what... Do you not believe me? Has there ever been a time when I said something was true and it wasn't? And the king says, well, I don't believe so. And he says, well, listen, if I'm wrong about this, you can take this from this. Take my head off my shoulders.
If circumstances lead me, I will find where truth is hid, though it were hid indeed within the centre.
How may we try it further?
Sometimes he walks 4 hours together here in the lobby.
So he does indeed.
At such a time, I loose my daughter to him. Be you and I behind an arras then.
All right, so he's got a plan. I can prove this to you, that he is sick in love, by arranging for a chance encounter. So we'll have them run into each other by chance. We'll be hiding behind a tapestry or an arras, and we'll spy on them. We'll listen in. We'll be able to tell whether he's madly in love with her or not by what they say. The king says, sounds good. I think that's a great idea. Let's spy on them. Everybody's spying on everybody, so why not? Polonius is going to say, listen, this is going to work. We'll find this out. If it doesn't, you can fire me. Let me be no assistant for the state, and I'll keep a farm. I'll be a farmer if I'm wrong.
Mark the encounter.
Except for he is wrong.
If he love her not, and be not from his reason fallen thereon, let me be no assistant for a state, but keep a farm and carters.
We will try it.
Look where sadly the poor wretch comes reading.
Away, I do beseech you. Both away. I'll board him presently.
Okay, so the queen, check her out. She says, look, there's my son. He's a poor wretch. And he does look wretched, right? He's not very well kept, and he's doing a good job at presenting himself as being insane.
Oh, give me leave. How does my good Lord Hamlet?
Well, God a mercy.
Do you know me, my lord?
Excellent well. You're a fishmonger.
No, not I, my lord.
All right, so let's take a look here. Fishmonger, he doesn't like Polonius, and he is going to verbally attack him a couple of times here. This is the first. Take a look, line 172, fishmonger, a fish seller, but also it means pimp. So in a way, he's suggesting that Polonius is in control of a girl and what she does. True? True. And then he's going to go on to attack him further verbally.
Then I would you were so honest a man.
Honest, my lord?
I, sir, to be honest, as this world goes, is to be one man picked out of 10,000.
Oh, that's very true, my lord.
For if the sun breed maggots in a dead dog, being a good kissing carrion, have you a daughter?
I have, my lord.
Let her not walk in the sun. Conception is a blessing, but not as your daughter may conceive. Friend, look to it.
All right. So Hamlet says, I wish that you were an honest man. He says, me? I am an honest man. And he said, he's cynical here. He's suggesting no, that you're not an honest man. He called him a pimp, a fishmonger, right? And so then he says, to find an honest man in this world is 1 out of 10,000. We see here that Hamlet is very cynical about the world, right? And this is all important because at a later time, we're going to talk about whether we think Hamlet is experiencing an existential crisis. So a preoccupation with death and dying and the uselessness of life, and very, very cynical. So here to suggest that only 1 in 10,000 men is honest is very cynical.
What say you by that? Still harping on my daughter?
All right, let's take a look at the annotation here. He says, Hamlet says, let her not walk in the sun, talking about Ophelia. The sun is associated with royalty. Therefore, Hamlet is warning Polonius to keep Ophelia out of the dangerous presence of either himself or the king.
Yet he knew me not at first. He said I was a fishmonger. He is far gone, far gone. And truly in my youth I suffered much extremity for love, very near this. I'll speak to him again. What do you read, my lord?
Words, words, words.
What is the matter, my lord?
Between who?
No, I mean the matter that you read, my lord.
Slanders, sir. For the satirical slave says here that old men have grey beards, that their faces are wrinkled, their eyes purging thick amber or plum tree gum, and that they have a plentiful lack of wit to give.
Okay, so here again, he is verbally attacking Polonius. Polonius says, what are you reading? He says, oh, I'm just reading words. He misinterprets this on purpose, right? And he says, well, actually, I'm reading about some slanderous material. In this book that I'm reading, the person is saying that old men have gray beards and their eyes are bulging out, and that they have a plentiful lack of wit. They're dumb. So essentially he's saying, you're an old man and you're dumb.
Together with weak hams. All which, sir, though I most powerfully and potently believe, yet I hold it not honesty to have it thus set down. For yourself, sir, should be as old as I am, if like a crab you could go backward.
Though this be madness, yet there is method in it. Will you walk out of the air, my lord?
Into my grave?
Indeed, that is out of the air.
All right, so again, full of preoccupation with death, into my grave. And again, we're going to see that people who have these existential crises in their lives, they do have this preoccupation with death.
How pregnant sometimes his replies are.
Meaning there is some truth coming through in what he says, even though he's completely crazy.
Happiness that often madness hits on, which reason and sanity could not so prosperously be delivered of. I will leave him and suddenly contrive the means of meeting between him and my daughter. My honourable lord, I will most humbly take my leave of you.
You cannot, sir, take from me anything that I will more willingly part with all, except my life. Except my life.
Oh,
Again, repetition for effect here. He's preoccupied with life and death and what is the meaning of it all.
Well, lord.
These tedious old fools.
You go to seek my lord, Hamlet. There he is.
God save you, sir.
My honour, Lord.
My most dear lord.
My excellent good friends. How dost thou, Guildenstern? Our Rosencrantz. Good lads, how do ye both?
As the indifferent children of the earth.
Happy, in that we are not over happy. On fortune's cap we are not the very button.
Nor the soles of her shoe?
Neither, my lord.
All right, so in walk Guildenstern and Rosencrantz, and again we see that Hamlet perks up a bit. We get a little glimpse of maybe the old Hamlet. What was he like before before his father died. And so these are his old friends from his childhood. So he's happy. He perks up a bit to see them. And he says, oh, how have you been? And he says, we're doing pretty good. Rosencrantz says, we're doing pretty good for common folk, right? He's not royalty. And Guildenstern says, oh, that's true. We're pretty happy. We're not too happy, but we're certainly not at the very bottom of the barrel, he says. We are happy in that we are not over happy. On fortune's cap, we are not the very bottom. We're not the bottom of the wheel of fortune. Things are going okay, in other words. Hamlet says, nor the soles of her shoes. So you're not on the very bottom. That's good. You're doing okay. You're in the middle. And so now we have, of course, some sexual innuendo. We know that Shakespeare used body humor, right? BAWDY, sexual innuendo, to keep the audience engaged. Did it work? You bet it does. Does it still work? Of course it does. Okay, so Rosencrantz here is going to go on to say that, no, we're not at the bottom. We're not on the soles of the Lady of Fortune, the goddess of fortune. And Hamlet is going to say, well, then where are you? In like the middle of her favors? And Guildenstern is going to say, faith, her privates, we. And then Hamlet is going to say, in secret parts of fortune. Oh, most true. She is a strumpet, a prostitute. So let's take a look at the annotation here. Fortune, the goddess Fortune, is said to be a strumpet because she cannot be relied on for continued favors. She is fickle. She keeps changing her mind about, the fortune of various people.
Anything about her waist or in the middle of her favors?
Faith, her privates, we.
In the secret parts of fortune. Oh, most true, she is a strumpet. What's the news?
None, my lord, but that the world's grown honest.
Then is doomsday near. But your news is not true.
Okay, so again, very negative, very cynical, preoccupied with death here. Doomsday is near.
Let me question more in particular. What have you, my good friends, deserved at the hands of fortune that she sends you to prison hither?
Prison, my lord?
Denmark's a prison.
So again here, this idea, this theme that he is trapped here. And he is trapped. It's all on him to get revenge, to set things right. His father is in purgatory. He's trapped there. How is all of this going to be set right? It is squarely on Hamlet's shoulders. He's trapped.
Then is the world one.
A goodly one, in which there are many confines, wards, and dungeons, Denmark being one of the worst.
We think not so, my lord.
Why then 'tis none to you, for there's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. To me it is a prison.
Why then your ambition makes it one. 'Tis too narrow for your mind.
Oh God, I could be bounded in a nutshell, and count myself a king of infinite space, were it not that I have bad dreams.
Which dreams indeed are ambition, for the very substance of the ambitious is merely the shadow of a dream.
Let's take a look at the annotation here, ambition. 252. Rosencrantz is trying to establish the cause of Hamlet's strange behavior by testing the idea that he is unhappy because his ambition to be king has been thwarted. So is it because your ambition has been affected, right? Because remember, in Denmark at this time, it wasn't really clearly established who ascended the throne. Before anybody could make a decision, poof, Claudius was on that throne and married the mother, right? So is it because you're not king?
A dream itself is but a shadow.
Truly, and I hold ambition of so airy and light a quality that it is but a shadow's shadow.
Then are our beggars' bodies, and our monarchs and outstretched heroes the beggars' shadows. Shall we to the court? For by my fay I cannot reason.
We'll wait upon you.
No such matter. I will not sort you with the rest of my servants. For to speak to you like an honest man, I am most dreadfully attended. But in the beaten way of friendship, what make you at Elsinore?
To visit you, my lord, no other occasion.
Beggar that I am even poor in thanks. But I thank you. And sure, dear friends, my thanks are too dear a halfpenny. Were you not sent for?
Boom, right to the point. Did they send for you to come here?
Is it your own inclining? Is it a free visitation? Come, deal justly with me. Come, nay, speak.
Tell me the truth.
What should we say, my lord?
By anything but to the purpose.
Okay, so what are they supposed to say? If they say yes, we were sent by the king and queen, they are traitors to the king and queen. Not good. If they say no, then they're lying to one of their best friends. They're in a no-win situation here. Except for Hamlet gives them an out. He says, okay, listen, I think I'm going to tell you what you are. You are sent by the king and queen. And so because I have told you what you are, it means you have not betrayed their trust. So Hamlet kind of gives them a little out.
You were sent for, and there is a kind of confession in your looks which your modesties have not craft enough to colour. I know the good king and queen have sent for you.
To what end, my lord?
That you must teach me. But let me conjure you, by the rights of our fellowship, by the consonancy of our youth, by the obligation of our ever-preserved love, and by what more dear a better proposer could charge you withal, be even and direct with me whether you were sent for or no.
What say you?
Nay, then I have an eye of you. If you love me, hold not off.
My lord, we were sent for.
I'll tell you why.
So I'll tell you why, so that you don't have to betray the king and queen.
So shall my anticipation prevent your discovery, and your secrecy to the king and queen moult no feather.
Yeah, we'll remain whole. You won't be traitors.
I have of late, but wherefore I know not, lost all my mirth, forgone all custom of exercise. And indeed, it goes so heavily with my disposition that this goodly frame, the earth, seems to me a sterile promontory. This most excellent canopy, the air, look you, this brave o'erhanging firmament, this majestical roof, fretted with golden fire, why, it appears no other thing to me than a foul and pestilent congregation of vapors.
This is a really good description of what depression often feels like. He says, I don't know why, but lately I'm just not happy. I've lost all my mirth. He says, the earth to me has no purpose. It's sterile. It's fruitless. Why be here? And he says, the beautiful sky even, this brave overhanging firmament, this majestical roof with a golden fire with the beautiful sun, that's nothing but a black cloud to me, he says. It is nothing to me than a foul and pestilent congregation of vapors, poisonous fog. And then he goes on to explain how he has lost all hope in men. All hope he has lost.
What a piece of work is man! How noble in reason, how infinite in faculty, in form and moving, how express and admirable, in action, how like an angel, in apprehension, how like a god. The beauty of the world, the paragon of animals.
Okay, so here we have him referring to the chain of being, right? The links. So he says, man is such a disappointment to him. Oh, sure. He's able to have imagination like the angels, and he has understanding like the God. And as far as animals go, he's the primate, right? He's at the top. But what a disappointment it is to be a man in this world. And he says, what is it all about? What is the quintessence? What is the meaning of it all? And then he says, man delights me not. And he says, nor woman neither. So here, this is a very different Hamlet than the Hamlet that Guildenstern and Rosencrantz knew before. I'm sure he loved the company of his friends and probably of women too. So this is a very different, depressed, much changed person for sure. Rosencrantz is going to change the subject. This is too heavy for him. So he says, if you don't like the company of men, well, then I guess you're not going to be happy that an acting company is on the way to the castle right now. They want to know if you would like to see a play. Can they do some service to you? Hamlet is going to be excited about that because he's already starting to cook up a little plot. He has some strategy cooking.
And yet to me, what is this quintessence of vice?
What is it all about? What's it for?
Man delights not me. No, no woman neither, though by your smiling you seem to say so.
My lord, there was no such stuff in my thoughts.
Why did you laugh then when I said man delights not me?
To think, my lord, if you delight not in man, what lantern entertainment the players shall receive from you. We quoted them on the way, and hither are they coming to offer you service.
He that plays the king shall be welcome. His majesty shall have tribute of me. The adventurous knight shall use his foil and target. The lover shall not sigh greatest. The humorous man shall end his part in peace. The clown shall make those laugh whose lungs are tickle of the seer. And the lady shall say her mind freely, or the blank verse shall halt for it. What players are they?
Even those you were wont to take delight in, the tragedians of the city.
How chances it they travel? Their residence, both in reputation and profit, was better both ways.
Okay, so Hamlet is saying, oh, you know what? I am looking forward to them coming. All of the parts that they play, especially him that plays the king, will have a special interest from me. He's already cooking a little plan. So then he says, what acting company is it? Who is it that's on the way? And Rosencrantz says, oh, you know who they are. You know this acting company. They play tragedies, the tragedians of the city. And Hamlet says, what? Why are they traveling? They're like a home base company. Why are they not, back at their home base? How chance it they travel? Their residence, both in reputation and profit, was better both ways. They made lots of money by just staying in their own acting home company. And Rosencrantz is going to explain. They're traveling around because of the latest fashion. And Hamlet's going to say, what do you mean, the latest fashion? And Rosencrantz is going to explain that the latest fashion is child actors. So there are groups of child acting companies that are so impressive that it's the latest fashion. Everybody wants to come and see the performances of these amazing child actors. And so what has happened is these child acting companies have put the other adult acting companies kind of out of work. They're so popular that nobody wants to see the older ones anymore because they're so in fashion to come and watch how amazing these child actors are. And so Hamlet is going to make a little joke and he's going to say, well, that's too bad, because aren't these child actors going to eventually grow up and become adult actors, and they're kind of putting themselves out of work?
I think their inhibition comes by the means of the late innovation.
The latest
Do they hold the
fashion.
same estimation they did when I was in the city? Are they so followed?
No, indeed, they are not.
How comes it? Do they grow rusty?
Nay, their endeavour keeps in the wonted pace, but there is an array of children, little eye-asses that cry out on the top of question and are most tyrannically clapped for it. These are now the fashion, and so berattle the common stages, so they call them, that many wearing rapiers are afraid of goose quills and dare scarce come thither.
What are they, children? Who maintains them? How are they escorted? Will they pursue the quality no longer than they can sing? Will they not say afterwards, if they should grow themselves to common players, as it's most like, if their means are no better, their writers do them wrong, to make them exclaim against their own succession?
Faith, has been much to do on both sides, and the nation holds it no sin to tar them to controversy. There was for a while no money bid for argument unless the poet and the player went to cuffs in the question.
It's possible.
Oh, there has been much throwing about of brains.
Okay, so the children are at odds with these adult acting groups, kind of like those drop the mic competitions, you know, so they're at odds with each other. And currently the child actors are winning the competition, right? Like, drop the mic. Okay, let's keep going.
The boys carry it away.
Aye, that they do, my lord. Hercules and his load too.
It is.
Now, this is an important thing to note here. So he says, do the boys carry the whole production? Because young boys were known to act as women in at this time. Women weren't allowed on the stage. It was unheard of. And so Hamlet is saying here, do the young boys, do they carry the whole production? And he's saying yes, because the young boys play men, but they also play the women. So do the young boys carry the whole thing? They do indeed, my lord. And he says, Hercules and his load too. Let's take a look at the annotation. Hercules and his load were the sign of the globe. The sign of the Globe Theater showed Hercules carrying a globe. And we know that the Globe Theater was Shakespeare's acting company. So this is like a little kind of hats off to himself in the actual play, saying that even the globe has been affected by the popularity of these child actors. They're even affected.
Not strange. For mine uncle is king of Denmark, and those that would make mouths at him while my father lived give 20, 40, 100 ducats apiece for his picture in little. Blood, there's something in this more than natural, if philosophy could find it out.
Okay, so Hamlet compares the new admiration for the child actors to the admiration for the new king, hinting that there is little justification for both of them.
Where are the players?
Gentlemen, you are welcome to Elsinore. Your hands, come. The appurtenance of welcome is fashion and ceremony. Let me comply with you in the garb, lest my extent to the players, which I tell you must show fairly outwards, should more appear like entertainment than yours. You are welcome. But my uncle, father, and aunt mother are deceived.
In what, my dear lord?
I am but mad north-northwest. When the wind is southerly, I know a hawk from a handsaw.
So he's saying here, I'm going to welcome these actors in, as is the custom. So I'm going to make sure that I behave with formal politeness. And he says, my uncle, the king and queen, are deceived because I am mad north-northwest, meaning I am mad only, when it's certain, like, it depends on the weather, right? So some days I'm sane and some days I'm crazy. It just depends on the weather. So I am but mad north-northwest. Depends on the weather. Some days, when the wind is southerly, I can act quite sane, is what he's saying. So enter Polonius. Now Hamlet doesn't really like Polonius. It's quite obvious. And he says, he's actually in this next little scene, he's going to call Polonius Captain Obvious. So Polonius is going to come in. Hamlet says, mark you, watch this. Here comes Polonius. And he's going to announce to me that the actors are here, even though I already know they're here. I heard them arrive. So we'll just finish this off, and then we'll give you free time.
I'll be with you, gentlemen.
Hark to Guildenstern, and you too, and each ear a hearer. That great baby you see there is not yet out of his swaddling clouds.
Happily is the second time come to them, for they say an old man is twice a child.
My lord.
I will prophesy he comes to tell of the players' market.
You say right, sir. On Monday morning, 'twas so indeed.
My lord, I have news to tell you.
My lord, I have news to tell you. When Roscius was an actor in Rome...
The actors are come hither, my lord.
Okay, so he called it. Hamlet says, I will prophesy he comes to tell me of the players. Watch. Even though they already know the actors are here, they've heard the entrance, all of the music playing. But of course, Polonius comes in. I have to tell you, the actors are here. And Hamlet says, buzz, buzz. Duh, I told you, right? I called it.
My honor.
Then came each actor on his ass.
The best actors in the world, either for tragedy, comedy, history, pastoral, comical, historical, pastoral, tragical, historical, tragical, comical, historical, pastoral, scene individable, or poem unlimited. Silica cannot be too heavy, nor Plautus too light. For the law of writ and the liberty, these are the only men.
Oh, Jephthah, judge of Israel, what a treasure hadst thou.
Okay, we'll leave it off there. But I want to just have you read the little annotation here. Hamlet says, "Oh, Jephthah, judge of Israel." So he calls Polonius Jephthah, which we know is probably not good. So Jephthah is a character in the Bible who sacrificed his daughter to fulfill an oath. So in other words, he's saying to Polonius, you'd do anything to get what you want. You would even sacrifice your own daughter. Is it true? Yeah, it is true. Okay, so we'll continue on tomorrow from this point.